Welcome. As you settle into bed, let your mind drift back. Not just years, not just centuries, but hundreds of thousands of years into the past. Tonight we're traveling through time to the world of ancient humans, a world untouched by skyscrapers, phones, or cities, but full of stories, connections, and mysteries. Let's begin. Long before recorded history, before pyramids or empires, there lived Homo sapiens, our ancestors. Roughly 100,000 years ago, they walked the earth, not so different from us in body, but living in a vastly different world. They lived in small tribes, often between 20 to 100 people. These were tight-knit communities where survival meant cooperation. Food was shared, duties were divided, and relationships were deeply intertwined with nature, spirituality, and necessity. So what did romance look like then? Was there love? Were there couples who looked into each other's eyes beneath a starlit sky? We believe yes. Evidence suggests ancient humans formed pair bonds, emotional and sexual partnerships that helped raise children and keep tribes stable. But these relationships weren't always exclusive, and they weren't always permanent. In many early societies, sex was sacred, not hidden, not shamed. Some anthropologists suggest that in prehistoric communities, sexual relationships were communal in some tribes, where parentage wasn't always tracked, but instead children were raised collectively by the tribe. This is very different from today's focus on monogamy and nuclear families. But some things were similar. There was affection. There was attachment, and there was often jealousy. Human emotions we still feel now. The idea of marriage as we know it, legal contracts, ceremonies, rings, didn't exist yet. But there were long-term partnerships, and over time, as agriculture developed, humans began to settle down. Around 10,000 years ago, during the Neolithic Revolution, farming emerged, villages formed, and society changed. Land ownership began, and with it a desire to control inheritance. This may be when marriages began to formalize, to ensure lineage, to bind families, to control women's fertility. It wasn't always romantic. Sometimes it was political, sometimes transactional. But still, across time, there were always stories of love and longing. What was the sex life like for men and women 100,000 years ago? It's impossible to know for sure. But what we do know is that both men and women were sexual beings. Women were not passive. They likely chose partners and had autonomy in many tribes. In some ancient cultures, it's believed that women had multiple partners, not only for pleasure, but because it was thought that multiple fathers could strengthen a child. Sex wasn't just for procreation. It was spiritual, it was social, it was natural. But what if there's more? Some theories say our past is not as simple as it seems. What if there were ancient civilizations far older than we believe? Whispers of Atlantis or forgotten cities beneath the sand that had advanced understanding of energy, the cosmos, even love. Others say that early human development was influenced by beings from the stars, that our sexual DNA was guided or altered. These are just theories, but intriguing ones that hint we may only know a fraction of our deep past. So as you drift off tonight, think of those ancient nights under vast starlit skies, fires flickering, laughter echoing through forests, two people sitting close, sharing warmth, sharing time, just like we do today. We are not so different. And though our world has changed, the essence of connection, love, and desire has always been with us. And now we begin with a prehistoric love story to lull you to sleep, The Fire Beneath the Stars. Long, long ago, before cities, before writing, before even the wheel, there was only the earth, the stars, and the beating hearts of people who lived close to both. In a wide valley surrounded by forests and rivers, two young Homo sapiens grew up among a tribe of about 30 souls. Their names, passed only in whispers of firelight and fading memory, were Kale and Alu. Their people had no written words, but they had rhythm, gesture, and a language of feeling deeper than speech. Their tribe lived in harmony with the land. They moved with the seasons, following the great herds and gathering fruits, roots, and seeds. There were no walls, only woven huts, stone tools, and shared fires. Kale was a hunter, swift and sure, his eyes sharp as a falcon's. Alu was a gatherer and firekeeper, a quiet soul who always noticed when someone needed food or warmth. Their connection began with glances across the fire and moments of shared silence. Love in their time was not spoken of with words. It was known by action, by presence. Theories tell us that romantic bonds during this era were fluid. Some communities may have practiced forms of pair bonding, perhaps seasonal, perhaps lifelong. Others may have shared more openly, with social cohesion as the highest value. Kale and Alu, though, were drawn only to each other. Whether by fate or instinct, their bond was strong and their tribe respected it. They shared a hide tent by the edge of the forest, their sleeping mats made of woven grass and animal skin. At night, Kale would press his hand to Alu's belly and hum to her softly. Perhaps they didn't know the word love, but they knew the feeling. One summer, Alu gave birth beneath the canopy of an oak tree, surrounded by the women of the tribe. A son, his cries fierce, his grip strong. They named him Ro, which meant firelight in their tongue. Parenthood was communal. The child was raised by all, but Kyle and Alu were his sun and moon. Kyle taught him to walk barefoot and listen to the ground, to speak with his eyes, to respect the life in every beast. Alu showed him the plants that healed, the stories in the stars, and how to share even when food was scarce. Together they lived simply but deeply. Theirs was a world without clocks, yet full of time. But peace never lasted forever. One autumn, another tribe moved into their hunting range. A misunderstanding, a stolen kill, and suddenly battle. Kale fought with a spear he carved himself. He stood not for blood, but for his people, and under the red sunset, Kale fell. Alu mourned in silence. The whole tribe wept. There were no funeral pyres, no graves. They covered him with leaves and marked the place with stones, and for nights afterward the fire burned low. Ro sat beside his mother, and though he did not understand the world, he felt it had changed. Seasons passed. The world around them shifted. New tools, new faces, new paths. Tribes began to travel farther, to trade, to share stories and bloodlines. Ro grew into a man like his father, and when he wandered to a neighboring village one spring, He met Ina, a quiet girl who smiled like his mother. They lay together under the same stars Kale once watched, and in time, they too became parents. Their children ran through the same fields, laughed in the same river, and heard stories of the man who once stood strong and fell bravely. The village changed, but the fire at its heart never went out. Time moved as softly as wind over tall grass. Ro, once the curious child at the edge of the fire, had grown into a father, then a leader. His shoulders were strong, but his heart stronger still. He remembered the way his father Kale had carried him on hunts, had pointed to birds in flight and taught him how to listen to the breath of the forest. He remembered the quiet wisdom in his mother Alu's hands, the way she healed wounds, warmed hearts, and calmed storms without needing words. Now Ro passed those gifts to his own children. By the firelight, he taught them how to sharpen stone tools, how to read the tracks of an animal, how to find sweetness in bark and medicine in roots. But more than anything, he taught them to be gentle, to be kind. That strength was not in how loud you could speak, but in how carefully you could listen. His mother Alu, her hair silver now, remained by his side. Ro honored her each day. He built her the warmest shelter, gathered the softest pelts, and ensured the tribe remembered who she was. A healer, a mother of peace, and the light that guided them all. When the younger children would play near her hut, she would tell stories of Kal, the man who once stood with spear in hand and fire in heart. Sometimes she swore she could still hear his footsteps in the wind. As Ro aged, so did his wisdom. Other villages came to know his name, not as a warrior, but as a bridge. When disputes arose over rivers or hunting lands, it was Ro who traveled miles to sit under a shared tree with the leaders of other tribes. He brought gifts, shells from faraway shores, sweet dried berries, tools made with care. More than that, he brought stories of shared ancestors, shared fears, shared dreams. And so, where there had once been war, there was now trade. Where there had once been silence, there was song. Tribes gathered to feast under the stars, to dance and to dream. Ro became an elder. His beard was long, his hands calloused and slow, but his eyes still held the wild spark of his youth. When children asked what mattered most, he would smile and say, "Feed the fire that feeds others. That is the only flame that never dies." As the earth turned, as rivers shifted and trees bent with the wind of new ages, Ro felt the end approaching, not as something to fear, but as a return. One cold evening, with his children and grandchildren around him, Alu resting quietly beside him, Ro looked to the stars. "We are not just bodies," he told them, voice soft as the night. "We are echoes of those who loved before us. We are fire passed hand to hand." He closed his eyes and drifted away, not into darkness, but into the great memory of the world. And now, thousands upon thousands of years later, you sit beneath those same stars. You breathe the same air that once filled their lungs. You carry in your blood the whispers of Kyle's courage, Alu's wisdom, Ro's peace. The ancient ones believed that the soul was like smoke. It rose, it traveled, it circled the sky, and it returned in the cries of a newborn or the eyes of a stranger. So as you fall asleep tonight, remember this: you are not alone. You are not small. You are not lost. You are part of the fire beneath the stars, a love story still being told. Sleep well, ancient soul. The ancient ones did not fear death. They saw it not as an end, but a return to the wind, to the soil, to the firelight, and to the great river in the sky they called the Path of Souls. And so, when a member of the tribe passed on, they did not speak of loss, but of passage. Families would gather by firelight, and elders would whisper the name of the departed into the flames, offering herbs and smoke to guide them to the stars. They would sing soft songs, not of mourning, but of gratitude, for time shared, for lessons learned, and for love that would never leave them. But not all departures were easy. There is a legend, whispered from one tribe to the next, about two young lovers named Alien and Sarai. Alien was a hunter, swift as the deer, with a voice that sang to the trees. Sarai was the tribe's firekeeper, keeper of warmth, of stories, and of memory. Their love was known by all, for wherever Alien went, Sarai's laughter was never far behind. Together they danced like flame and wind, inseparable and ever-moving. But the world is not always kind to those who love deeply. One long winter the snows came early and hard. The tribe was forced to move, and in a storm, Alien was lost. Days turned to weeks, and Sarai stood at the edge of the plains each night, eyes fixed on the horizon. When word came that Alien had fallen to the cold, Sarai did not weep. She did not scream. She simply walked barefoot into the snow. She climbed the great ridge where they had first met, and there, beneath the stars, she sang his name to the sky. That night, the tribe said the wind changed. It hummed low like the notes of an old song, and in the sky above the ridge, two stars, bright and new, appeared side by side. The elders said that Sarai's love was so strong, so unshaken, that it lit the heavens. That she and Alien had been reunited, not in the cold soil, but in the warmth of the stars. To this day, the two stars are called the Embrace. And when someone from the tribe passes, the people look up. They do not cry for long. Instead, they whisper to the sky, hoping their loved one finds the embrace, that celestial space where love never dies and no one walks alone. So if you find yourself missing someone, if you feel a quiet ache in the stillness of night, step outside. Look up. The stars above still burn with ancient memory. And somewhere just beyond the clouds, Alien and Sarai are waiting. Their arms open, their love eternal, guiding every soul home. Sleep well. You are never alone.